Hey guys, welcome to How Do I Make That Accessible. Today I'm looking at a game called Mechajammer. It's not intended as an accessible game, but I'm going to look at it from that perspective and see what I can get out of a regular game, what recommendations I can make from a low vision and someone with no functional vision to use this game. I hope you guys enjoy. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. I played this for 10 minutes to get an idea of what recommendations I could briefly make. But let's do this as a community and make what suggestions we can, help move accessibility forward by giving constructive criticism and good ideas. So let's get going by first zooming into the game and seeing how the main menu is. So as we zoom in here, it's good. It's centralized, the menu here. I can find it very quickly. There's big text around. It's quite bright. The color scheme's not great, but it's bright enough that I can easily find it, and it's good for tracking in the middle. We go to settings. There's not really anything you can change the resolution of the screen. That's about it. Music and audio for the FX. Nothing really labeled too badly, but not particularly clear with the style they've used, and the colors are very flat, so it's hard for me to navigate. It'd be nice to have some more popping colors. They've got these neon colors in the background behind the menu, which would make things a lot better in there. You've got the close option here. There's no hotkeys. I'm hitting the X key there. That's the sound. It's not going away. I have to click. I'd much prefer to have a hotkey because I can't always find the buttons to hit them. I cannot navigate the menu with the arrow keys. That'd be handy to have, especially in terms of using any screen reading software or a talking option in the game. So yeah, having hotkeys to navigate the menu would be very helpful. Other than that, let's get into it. Click play demo. As we come in, we've got a black screen here. I'm scanning and tracking the edges of the screen and cannot find anything. There's no loading, so I didn't know what's going on. Here I select a character. Please choose a character. It's pretty easy to make out. There's minimal to read. The only problem I have here is that when text pops up underneath as we zoom out, I cannot read it. So it's going to change as we hop on them. What's handy in games like this is when we select it or put our mouse to hover over something, if the text can then lock so we can pull it away and look at it. For example, here I'm locked in, zoomed in. When I come down, the text is gone. If you could lock it, I'd be able to use it. That'd be fantastic. For now though, we're going to pick this character. Kerbad, I believe is the name. I looked at the character creation briefly. It's pretty straightforward. Color scheme isn't very good. It makes things hard to see. The pixelized art and style would be perfectly fine if there were brighter colors in it. I'd much prefer that. I'd be able to easily find my way around. I mean, reading the name Conrad there is quite difficult as we zoom in. As we come down the screen, we can follow. It's pretty straightforward information to get around. Tracking's quite hard here. It'd be handy to have some lines across the screen on menus at the bottom here. The problem I found here is that there's dice on this part. You put these dice into these different categories and you add points that way. The dice are almost the same color in the color scheme of the categories. It'd be handy if the dice were brighter. I mean, they're meant to be dice. I know this is a grim, dark reality, but it's also got a bit of cyberpunk in there. Put some bright colors, maybe some red, purple, bright pink, neon green dice. That'd be fantastic. You can put up the pain threshold and stuff like that. It's not too bad for tracking. Colors here are terrible on the right. Be good to have some bright colors here. They're blue on gray, which is very hard for someone that's colorblind like myself to see. But yeah, great. Otherwise, great for a sighted person, which is what this is intended for. But from the accessibility standpoint, not very good. Complete button's good. Bright green. Thank you very much. We can hop on through. Unless I'm missing something here. I'm probably missing something. So let's try clicking one more time. Nope. Okay, let's zoom out. So this is what we have to do when we can't see. We zoom out so we can track where the thing is. If you were to put this here, this thing that says, "Are you sure?" I know it's centralized so that someone zoomed out can see on the screen there, but putting an arrow up here next to complete pointing down to say, "Hey man, there's something in the middle of the screen. I'm going to track to it." Here it is. Yes, I'm done. Okay, click next. So we always want to have tracking at every point of it. It's coming into the main game here. The main game screen is quite a dark, dreary atmosphere. It'd be nice to have an option to turn things on to highlight stuff. You can highlight stuff when you go over it with a mouse, which we'll see in a second, but it's not very intuitive for navigating the screen. Color's extremely dark and the text, I'd much prefer to have it brighter. There's no real reason to have it this dark. It isn't like it's in a style that's meant to be in a computer. It's just a text bubble. You can have nice contrast with a bright white background and black text, or if you're going for that old school computer vibe, you could have the black background and bright white text up front in that style. So again, the color scheme here isn't very good for colorblind people or for people with low vision, but it's readable if you want to struggle through it. We click next, we'll get through the text here. I don't want to linger on it too much because, as I say, it's not that great. So we'll say we're ready to go. It's got our face here. You can see his eyes are moving around. I have to zoom out. He's still talking. Okay. I mean, the text is easy to track. If the contrast was there, the text would be fantastic. I wouldn't have any issues with it whatsoever. We've come into the main game now. We're on the main screen of it. There's quite a few issues here that I found, which will also lead us into how someone with no functional vision could potentially use the game. There's something at the top now. It's text popping in from someone, so I have to zoom in to see that. It's time text. So again, if I could click next on this or have it in a log, even a separate log, I'm not sure if there is, we will check. But yeah, having a different log to be able to track all of this text would be handy, because I cannot read it as it pops up. There doesn't appear to be a log, but if I'm incorrect, please let me know in the comments. Yeah, so popping up text, no bueno for people with low vision, especially people with no functional vision. A log is always handy for stuff like that. Most RPGs carry one around. The HUD is not very good, not clearly defined, partly because of the style. Again, more pop-up text here. Pop-up text is quite difficult. Kind of having trouble reading it, to be honest. Having trouble tracking it as well. Map is not very clear, but map isn't always the be all end all for a visually impaired person, because we typically don't use them anyway. We zoom in here and we can click and move our character around. You can use the arrow keys as well to move them around. We're zoomed in here to see what's going on. So the problem I had is that I can click on stuff around the environment. So let's move around up here. Let's click up. It shows us where we've clicked, and you can move around pretty easily. It blacks out where you can't see, which we'll come to with the no functional vision review part in a moment. So I can click this terminal here. So I click on it, it zooms in. And the issue we have here is that I've got an item from this terminal. I had no idea until I went down to the bottom of the screen, and it tells me rations, F to pick up. I would have never seen that. Pop it up over my head, let me know that something's there. If there's a hotkey for it, fantastic, but just let me know that it's above my head, and then sort that to the top of my inventory so that I know it's brand new and that it's the last time I picked up. It doesn't just disappear into my inventory, never to be seen again. I've hit F. I assume that it's gone in there. There's not a whole lot of audio feedback on most of this. Yeah, the navigation is pretty tough on this, especially zoomed in. You have to zoom back out. We're going to run through here very quickly through the environment, and while we are, I will talk about using the game with no functional vision. So the first part is that having headed areas would be fantastic. So this is talking more from perspective of if there was no budget. Mechajammer is a independent game, I assume, from the level of it here. I mean, it's a great game, but I'm assuming low budget, small developer. I'm not expecting them to have full accessibility in their game. I'm going to talk from perspective of if they had unlimited funding and could do anything to improve accessibility, then what they could do is to have a list of locations, and then within that list of locations, specific terminals or points that you can move to, maybe NPCs, points of interest. You could even do it as a headed mode. So as it's reading stuff back to you and giving you audio feedback on what you're selecting, which is what I covered in the menu. You tell me that it's new game, settings, quit, allow me to navigate with the keys, allow me to get to the settings at least, and turn the audio feedback on. You can have voices for the characters, which would be helpful. Having text to speech is fine. If you want to put that in your game, fantastic. As long as it functions, as long as we can use it, get the voices from the characters, have their name so that we know who it is when the speech to the text to speech comes up. That's perfect. In the game as well, having an audio feedback so that you could flick through a menu potentially of locations and then move there. Well, how would you be able to move there? Well, it seems like the pathfinding's fine in this. If I click with the character, the AI is able to figure it out. Maybe not long distances, because as we maneuver around small obstructions and obstacles here, he does bounce a bit, but it seems like pathfinding's pretty good. He'd find his way. Yeah, so you could have a menu of locations to move to, scroll down it, hit enter, move there, go into the area and then go into the sub locations. You could also have headings. Headings works if you use the number keys. So number 1 would allow you to cycle through the main locations. So let's say north, east, southwest. So hitting 1 goes north, hitting 1 again goes east, and hit enter. You go into that, you can hit 2 for the heading 2 locations within that, so that you can move to those, and then the heading 3 if there are, depending on the size of the location, and giving us some context of whether there are headings 1, 2 or 3 for the locations, because it seems like you could move directly to them and interact with them based on the pathfinding and based on the way that the game works from the limited time I've spent with it. It seems really cool. I'm going to go into the combat now, and the combat is part of the reason why I think that it could be excellent for accessibility with the brief time I spent with it. There's tooltips popping up in the top. They're very difficult to read. It'd be cool to have some audio feedback, or it'd be cool to just have them bigger, pop up on the screen. Pop-ups always fantastic. People might find them annoying. Visually impaired people love them. It's gone away. It was timed. That's not great. So as we move into combat, it's turn-based, so fantastic. Straight off the bat, turn-based combat is good for visually impaired and people with no functional vision, although saying that people with no functional vision do love things like Mortal Kombat and Gears of War. So as we come in, we can click and move closer to the enemies, we can click and move further away, and we can right click to attack them. So why is that good for someone with no functional vision? Well, you can actually use sonar to determine how far away something is. It'd be quite easy to implement something like that into a game where it beeps based on the number of hexes you are away from something, and then you could left click once to move towards something and double left click to move away. Then you could right click once to move towards something to hit it, and double click to shoot. It'd be quite easy to implement in that way, that you're only using 4 mouse clicks to navigate combat. Your AI partners around you act independently as well. The only downside is that if your AI companions got into trouble, you wouldn't really know, but I mean, you could scale that based on the accessibility and the difficulty level as well. You could also, sort of boycott the idea of having independent AI as well. So I've clicked on something here. I want to come out of combat. I think we hit space. Oh no, there's still an enemy. So let me know there's an enemy, and then I think he's there. I can right click, boom, he shoots. So I don't even have to fully engage with the game. It will just do it for me, which is really cool. I know I'm still in combat. I can shoot, and yeah, this is really cool. I think it could be made accessible for low vision people quite easily by boosting the colors, bumping things up a bit. The art style is a problem, but highlighting people, they've highlighted them slightly here, but they're trying to give them this grim, dark, murky sort of look to them. But as I say, you could get it working for someone with no functional vision quite easy, just through the navigation of pathfinding and through the combat. The last thing I touch on with that is, what about if I wanted to have secret hidden areas, Jim? Well, you could do that quite easily. I mean, due to the accessibility settings, maybe take that away if you really get in depth and no holds barred. You could certainly put in a function where it's linked to a skill, and you pass or fail a test. You don't notice the secret locations on each playthrough. You get different ones. I mean, there's a number of ways to do it. I'm not really sure how many secret locations are in this game, but yeah, there's just a general overview of the accessibility. The color scheme isn't great. It has a potential to be great because there are a lot of neon high contrast colors that could be utilized with the style of the game. Again, the contrast of black and white. The menus allowing to navigate with the arrow keys. You allow in the game to move around, but then the menus doesn't give you that same functionality, and actually you just jumped on obstacle to move around it. So yeah, the pathfinding is pretty good. I think that this is good potential for a game. It likely will never be accessible because it's a very small developer, but I'm doing these videos to give a better idea of how things could be made more accessible. I also want to get people's ideas in the comments. I want to grow this. I want to try and have our community provide more advice to these developers to get more accessible games, even if it's just 1 or 2 little options in there, just 1 or 2 things to consider around color schemes, if anything, and the bigger stuff, even better. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm from Knights of the Braille. My name is Jim. We are groups of blind, visually impaired and sighted tabletop role-playing gamers, video gamers and hobbyists that all get together A link to our Discord community is down below in the description. Please come and join us, come and talk, and tune in for our next video. Thank you.